सहनावतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। ॐ सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। ॐ गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुः साक्षात् परं ब्रह्म तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। ॐ सरस्वती नमस्तुभ्यं वरदे कामरूपिणि विद्यारम्भं करिष्यामि सिद्धिर्भवतु मे सदा। कार्पण्यदोषोपहतो स्वभावः पृच्छामि त्वां धर्मसम्मूढचेताः। यश्रेयस्यानिश्चितं ब्रूहि तन्मे शिष्यस्तेऽहं शाधि मां त्वां प्रपन्नम्। ॐ वाङ्मे मनसि प्रतिष्ठिता मनो मे वाचि प्रतिष्ठितम् आविर्भावेति वेदस्य महाणस्तः श्रुतं मे मा प्रहासिः। अनेन अधीतेन अहोरात्रान् सन्ददामि ऋतं वदिष्यामि सत्यं वदिष्यामि तन्मामवतु तद्वक्तारम् अवतु मामवतु वक्तारम् अवतु वक्तारम्। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। ॐ भद्रं कर्णेभिः शृणुयाम देवाः भद्रं पश्येम अक्षभिर्यजत्राः स्थिरैरङ्गे स्तुष्टुवाग्वं स्वस्तिभिः यशेव देवहितं यदायुः। स्वस्ति न इन्द्रो वृद्धश्रवाः स्वस्ति न पूषा विश्ववेदाः स्वस्ति न साक्ष्यो अरिष्टनेमि स्वस्ति नो बृहस्पतिर्दधातु। शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। अहं वृक्षस्य मूलेरिव कीर्तिपृष्ठं गिरेरिव पवित्रो वाजिनीव स्वामृतमस्मि द्रवरत्वं सवर्चसं सुमेधा अमृतोक्षितः इति त्रिशङ्कोर्वेदानुवचनम्। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः।
Welcome back, everyone. I hope everyone had a spectacular Holi. Good to see you all. Okay. So, who wants to go for the summary for the last class? Yeah.
Last class we saw Shloka 23, 24, and 25. Actually, we are made up of Prakriti and Purusha. The Prakriti start with Trigunas, and it is made up of 23 principles of creation. So, our connection between this insentient and sentient nature is that we believed and we accepted we are the body, we are not the soul. So that is the only connection. And Shloka 23 talks about why this delusion. So the root cause of the delusion is our desires and attachment, which creates the bondage, and we are born again and again in this world. So what to do is, if in a shorter words, if we are not attaching like not attaching to the result of our actions, that leads to liberation. So that is the seed actually. And if we are attached and we are doing the actions without any purpose, we are going to born again and again in the world and go through this sufferings. So, and also in Shloka 24, the Lord talks about how to transcend the bow behind the actions and the attachment to the outcome, so that we can realize we are the Atma. So the Lord speaks about two ways to achieve this. The first one is Shankyanishta, the second one is Yoganishta. So the Shankyanishta is the Shankya yogis, they don't identify with the body at all. They born with that identification with soul. And so they have this, they see the Jivatma and Paramatma as the same. And also their way of prayer is meditation. And they kind of, they associated with the Nirgun Nirakar room of God because they themselves don't have the body consciousness. Whereas the path of Yoga Nishtha is for us, where we have the body consciousness, we are immersed in body consciousness, and also then our connection with the divine is of like, you know, the servant and the master, or the father and the child, or mother or the child, that kind of a relationship, since we are attached to our body consciousness. And also our pathway is like, if we are not attaching to the outcome of the actions, we offer that action to the divine. That is the pathway of Yoganishta. And so we pray to the Lord as a Shagun Shakaru. And devotion and meditation, they both help to fasten the evolution in both the paths. And in both the paths, the destination is the same. And also in Shloka 25, the Lord says, there is one more path, one more way to achieve the God. This is for the people who kind of doesn't have that intellect to grasp the knowledge. If they are simple-minded, if they are authentic and they are honest, and also they do their duty faithfully and wholeheartedly, they can easily achieve the God.
Very, very nicely explained. Thank you so much. So yeah, so that's where we had ended last class, where we said that first is what we have to remember is that Bhakti is an absolutely intrinsic part of both the Nishtans, whether it is Sankhya.
Tuhina, your voice is not clear.
Is it clearer now?
Yeah.
Much better.
Yeah.
So Bhakti is an important part of both the Nishthas, Yog Nishtha, Karma Yog Nishtha, or Sankhya Yog Nishtha, right? And Bhakti is, what is Bhakti, right? End of the day, Bhakti is love. Okay, Bhakti is love. And that is why it is an absolutely integral part of both the Nishthas. We've always said Bhakti adds that ras to life. Okay? And that is why Bhakti is supremely important. And how did we start the Bhakti Yug? Bhakti starts with knowing the object of Bhakti. Knowing the object of Bhakti is the starting point. The more you know a person, the more you know an object, the more you know Bhagwanji, the more you fall in love. And the more you fall in love, the more you act out of love. The more you act out of love, the more then you get into this good cycle, virtue cycle, where because you are acting out of love, you are getting more energy out of the process itself. And because you are acting, because that process itself gives you energy, you're propelled further and further to act for that object of love. It's like, for example, when you are in love with your children, right? You're constantly doing things for them. You're really toiling hard, but it doesn't feel like work, right? Because you're acting out of love. But the same thing, same amount of effort you have to put in your office where you don't love your job, it will feel extremely difficult on a daily basis. Okay, so it is not work that is done, it is about the bhav level, whether you are in love or you're not. Okay, so bhakti is falling in love with Bhagwanji. And you can only fall in love with Bhagwanji, and you can only make Bhagwanji your goal instead of sansar as your goal, only by falling in love with Bhagwanji. So that is what we have to constantly aim for. If we are not in love with Bhagwanji, then we are in love with sansar. We are in love with sansaric relationships. We are in love with sansaric material objects, right? And so we will constantly toil for them. They become our object on a daily basis. So that is what needs to transform. That's what needs to change. And everything else that we do in terms of activities is towards falling in love with Bhagwanji. You have to spend time with Bhagwanji. You have to spend time with anything that you need to, that you want to fall in love with. You don't fall in love by not spending time, right? So that is why we have to do Swadhyay, we have to do Nam Jap, we have puja, rituals, and all other things, so that we spend the time with him at the right bhav level. What can also happen is that we are doing all the rituals, but we are not really thinking of him in that moment. We are not present, right? We can be talking to our colleagues, to our children, to our partner, yet not being present. So it is not the physical body where it is that determines where we are. What determines where we are is where our mind goes. We might all be sitting here in the satsang, but if our mind is at somewhere else, that's where we really are. So when we are doing our nam jap, when we are doing our rituals, when we are sitting and talking to Bhagwanji, when we are in Swadhyay, we have to really be present wholly and completely. So the more time we spend with Bhagwanji, the more we fall in love with him. Now that does not mean that we will now only sit in front of our mandir and we will not do our other activities. The idea is that we do all our activities, but we are constantly thinking of him. Right? So we are going out for shopping and all we see is Bhagwanji. We don't see Bhog. When we walk into a mall, we don't see Bhog. We go to ECP for a walk, we don't see Bhog. We see Yog. Okay? So constantly on a daily basis, in every single daily activity, we have to find a way to connect to Bhagwanji. Every VVGP should remind us of Bhagwanji. And when we are constantly reminded of Bhagwanji, then we are spending more time with him. And in the process, we will fall more and more in love with him because we will see his beauty. We will see his wonder. We will see his power. We will see how much he takes care of us. We will see his benevolence. We will see how much he's taking care of us. Right? We become aware. Our chitta becomes more and more shuddha. It becomes purer. It becomes more subtler. And as it becomes subtler, our ability to connect to him and to see him further refines. Shloka 26. Okay, so Anita, would you like to read with us?
Yes, give me 1 minute. Connection. The mind is often perplexed when when the infinite diversity of the phenomenal world weaves a complex web of activities in which it is difficult to find the way out. The Lord clarifies the situation thus.
Now, we will read this shloka with the background of the previous three shlokas, where we have Sankhya Nishtha, then we have Yoga Nishtha, in which we are supposed to do a lot of other activities as well. And then Bhagwanji comes and says that for those who do not have the ability to really understand Gita or its principles, one who does not have the time and effort to like go through all the scriptures and understand them, what of them? For them, Bhagwanji says that it does not matter. they are where they are simple-minded. All they need to have is Shraddha, right? Full Shraddha, full faith. And just with that Shraddha, with that faith, and that complete surrender will help them pass the ocean of life, right? And then he says, okay, but in Karma Yoga, when we are looking at the world, because we are constantly interacting with the world, now this world is Maya, right? This is Maya. Maya is Bhagwanji's power. So Bhagwanji's power obviously is super strong. It is extremely glamorous. It's extremely beautiful. It's extremely attractive because it belongs to Bhagwanji. Whatever belongs to Bhagwanji cannot be something that we can easily cross over with our own abilities, right? Which are extremely limited. So now the question is that the moment we are going out there, our mind is constantly perplexed. When we experience it on a daily basis, we do satsang. 5 minutes after that, we are out in the world, and that's it. Everything that we've learned in satsang is already forgotten. And we are back to our basic habits. So we are constantly like talking about the worldly objects again. Super glitzy, super attractive. So how can we find our way out of that? Because my mind is constantly ensnared by the glamour of the world. So now Bhagwanji is answering that question. Yavat sanjayate kinchit
Yavat sanjayate kinchit
sattvam sthavara jangamam
sattvam satavara jangmamam
sattvam sthavara jangamam
sattvam stavara jangmamam
kshetra kshetragya sanyoga
kshetrajna samyoga
attadvidi bharatarshava
tatviti bharadharshava
Yes, please read.
O Bharata, whatever object, animate or inanimate, comes into being, know that to be the product of the union of the field and the farmer.
Samam sarveshu bhuteshu
Samam sarvetu bhuteshu
tishtatam parameshwaram
tishtatam parameshwaram
vinashyat vinashyatsvi vinashyantam
vinashyat yatasva vinasantyam
vinashyatsva avinashyantam
vinasyat yatsva vinasatyam
vinashyatsva
vinashatva
avinashyat avinashyantam
vinashyantam
yah pashyati sa pashyati
ya pashyati sa pashyati. One who discerns the supreme self, the
Already read. Yeah.
one who discerns the supreme self, the imperishable entity amongst the perishables, as abiding equally in all the being, discerns correctly the supreme self as the imperishable substratum of all perishables. These two shlokas contain the essence of teaching of this entire chapter. All the animate or inanimate forms of creation are produced by the union of the field, matter, and the farmer, the spirit. The term field denotes the lower or insentient nature. It has the characteristic of ever changeability and diversity of manifestation, but it has no power of its own to bring forth these changes or manifestation. It needs the activating power of the former or the spirit to bring them about. The spirit is the higher nature of the self, and through that, in the form of individualized self, the supreme self activates the field. For example, a kaleidoscope contains small pieces of colored glass placed between the three mirrors, inclined to each other in small tube. By rotating the tube, these pieces are seen through the eyeglass in the shape of ever-changing patterns. If the tube is not rotated, the pattern cannot be produced. The patterns formed by the rotation are so charming to look at that they are used for mm, creating attractive designs in the textile industry. But behind these ever-changing design lies the power which rotates the tube. In the same manner, though it is insentient nature in which the diverse shapes or forms are created, it is activated by the sentient power of the individual self.
So let's look at it as an example. So let's look at it as an example. Example of sun and earth. Sun and earth together create life and activity. Right? Without the sun, there's nothing we can do on earth. Earth revolves around the sun. Right? Without the gravitational force of the sun, there is no earth. Everything that we do on earth is powered because of the sun. But everything that we do, the sun remains completely unaffected. Activities that go on in the world will continue to have consequences based on the laws of earth, but the sun remains unaffected. Similarly, the soul and the body. The soul powers the body, and that is so the sun and the earth is the example of the field. Everything the sun and the earth create is the field. Now we come to the farmer. The farmer is a similar union of sun and earth, except sun is the soul and earth is the body. So everything that is powered in the body is from the sun, the soul. So everything the body does, the soul remains completely unaffected. Make sense?
Abhinav, Tikuna, your voice has been going in and out. I'm not sure everybody else is having the same issue.
Is it better now?
It is better, but certain times it is better, certain times it is
Yeah,
we are
Probably against
not
the wind or
audible.
something like that. Sometimes it is going off.
Is it? Okay. Okay. Let us know if it happens again. Okay. I think it could be because of the table fan. So you
maybe switch it off. Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's also muffled.
muffled, is it?
Yeah.
It could be because of that fan. So you let me know if it continues to be bad quality. No, I think you just
Sleep on.
this also. And I think another important thing to what is being brought about in this paragraph is that anything and everything you look at, whether it is sentient or insentient, everything is composed of Bhagwanji, the consciousness, and the lower Prakriti. Everything. It is not just the sentient things that we see. It's not just plants and animals and human beings that have soul as such, and only those are composed of Bhagwanji. Even inanimate things like a stone, inanimate stuff like water or air, everything is composed of Bhagwanji, the consciousness, and the Prakriti. So there is Prakriti and there is consciousness. So even if when you look at a stone and you kick a stone, you have to know that there is Bhagwanji, an element of Bhagwanji even in that. So you can't do tiraskar of anything and everything you touch. Now, this is a question I think somebody had asked me that, whether, I think a week or two ago, for which this answer is there, that whether, inanimate objects also have the soul, right? So they do not have the soul in the same way as we think of soul inside a human being, right? But it is infused with consciousness. And Bhagwanji is saying this to us in this paragraph in no uncertain terms. Everything is composed of Bhagwanji. Now, how do you see the element of consciousness in an inanimate object like a stone or like water? So that is also explained here very clearly. Bhagwanji is saying that while everything in Prakriti has the property of ever changeability, of constant change, that change cannot be activated without consciousness dripping through it. It is consciousness, it is Bhagwanji, it is his power alone that causes that mutability to become effected. Otherwise, there will be no change. While it has a property of changing, that property will not get activated unless Bhagwanji's energy is infused into it. So, for example, water has the ability to flow, right? It is a very critical and a very basic element. It's dharma of water to flow, right? That flow comes from the energy of Bhagwanji. So, in that flow, you see Bhagwanji. The water itself, that component is Prakriti, and its activity of flowing, its characteristic of flowing is Bhagwanji in it. Air as a Prakriti is Prakriti, right? As a component. But its ability to carry Sugandh, its ability to flow, its ability to give pran to us, all of this is Bhagwanji in it. Right? So there is stone. Stone is sitting there, it is Prakriti. But the stone has Bhagwanji in it in several forms. One is you can carve a stone into something that you want to create. That whatever gets carved out of it, its ability to get carved out is Bhagwanji's energy in it. Its ability to get eroded and get smaller or smoother, the smoothness of a stone, that got created because of Bhagwanji's energy in it. So every inanimate object also that you see around you has Bhagwanji in it. There is nothing in this world that is not a union of Prakriti and Bhagwanji's consciousness. These two things come together to create anything and everything, whether it can speak, whether it can feel, whether it can talk or not. Everything. So when you look at anything and everything in this world, we have to interact with it with the same amount of reverence as the reverence we have when we enter inside a temple. That is the crux of this paragraph. And when we understand it really, really well, remember it at all times, bring it into our experience, then there is no need for you to sit in one mandir. Now, this world is a walking mandir. Okay, now there is no small space for Bhagwanji in one place. This place is Bhagwanji, you have to create a space for yourself in his mandir. Now you're walking, talking in a mandir constantly. You're sleeping in a mandir, you're eating in a mandir. And now imagine the reverence that will come in when you act according to that. And how different would your actions be towards people or towards things? Think of it for a moment as just a thought experiment. Would your thoughts, your actions change when you are inside a mandir at all times, 24/7? How would your actions be different? How would your thoughts be different? How would your expectations be different from yourself and from others? That is the crux of this paragraph.
I just wanted to mention about Ayuda Puja, where we do the puja for all the tools that are helping us to perform our duties.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There is a full festival for that, right? I don't remember the name of the festival, but there's a festival in India where we do the puja of all the tools for us, right? All the tradesmen do that puja. Now that's the reverence with which we have to approach everything, right? That is why when we are small children, we are taught ki Saraswati hai aapki book mein, correct? We are all taught that you tiraskar nahi karna chahiye a book ka, you cannot touch your book or your pencil with your feet. You have to constantly, agar niche gir jaye, then like put it on your this thing, right? So there is a way that you say sorry. That because for kids, that is their tools. That is what they do. Similarly, for sportsmen, they will always, the best of the sportsmen will have that bhav of complete reverence towards their towards the tools that they use for playing, whether it's your bat or ball or gloves or whatever else that you use, right? They will do that. And same thing for us. On a daily basis, you're using utensils to cook. You're sitting on a chair. You're sitting on you're sleeping on a bed. Have that reverence for everything. It is Bhagwanji's energy in it that is enabling you to use those tools, your utensils, your mattress, your bed to get that restful sleep. Absolutely. So that's the first paragraph here. Supreme Self as the imperishable substratum of all perishables. The fact that they are perishable, they will not perish without that energy infused into it by Bhagwanji. A rock gets eroded because of Bhagwanji's energy in it. That is the activating power. Let's read.
The unreal character of the union. In Shloka 27, the Lord reveals an important truth. The shapes and forms of beings keep on changing all the time, but the Supreme Self, who in the shape of the individualized self, provides the power for affecting these changes. Um, Abides equally as the substrum of all the beings and is not subject to any change. For example, the moon high above in the sky is reflected in the vessel full of water placed on the ground. The reflection starts moving in the water is disturbed is disturbed, and the color of the reflection is affected by the color of the water. If the water is thrown away, the reflection disappears. But the moment in the water, but the movement in the water or throwing away the water does not affect the moon at all. Similarly, the physical form created in insentient nature appear to be moving about or to be engaged in actions. The Supreme Self, by whose power the movements or action are created in nature, is quite unconnected with them. Just as the reflection of the moon is seen in the water, similarly, the individualized self is seen in the bodies. And just as the reflection disappears when the water is thrown away, so so is the individualized self said to leave the body when the body dies. But as a matter of fact, the self can't have can't have any union with the body because the self is sentient and the physical form is insentient. This is why the Lord says in Shloka 27 that the only the person who discerns the entire creation as as a produce of the apparent union of spirit and the matter has the discernment.
So I think continuing the first paragraph very clearly tells us that everything we see in this world is a union of farmer and the field. Everything. Then he goes on to say that this union is only apparent, it is not real. And only the person who understands these two aspects really sees the truth. First, everything is created with that union. Second, that union is only seemingly so. It is not real. Now, how do you really understand that? That there is a seeming union, but there is no real union. Seeming union in the sense, like exactly the example that Abhinav gave at the beginning. that there is everything on earth is being activated by sun's energy, right? So everything is impacted by his energy, everything is created by his energy. Sun's energy is the one that gets locked up in different forms, whether that energy is locked up in food, which gets released, or whether it gets locked up in fossil fuels, which then gets released when we burn it. Every energy, every form of energy on earth is a form of sun's energy trapped in different ways, right? And it is all activated by sun's energy. But is sun actually trapped in that energy? Is using that energy or releasing of that seeming energy in it affect sun in any way? Does not, right? You can do whatever, whether you use the fire that is latent in a piece of wood or in coal to cook food, or whether you use it to burn someone's house down or to kill someone, none of that is going to affect the sun. The results of any of those actions will not accrue to sun because sun gave that energy. He is completely unaffected and he is equally abiding. Bhagwanji is equally abiding in all things. In every aspect of life, he is infused in every atom around us, whether it is a part of a sentient being or whether it's a part of an insentient being. Bhagwanji is completely infused in every atom in this world equally. He makes no favoritisms. There are no favoritisms. Okay, whether there is Ravan or whether there is Prahlad, Hiranyakashyap and Prahlad both are infused with the same amount of godliness in them. It does not matter. He does not, Bhagwanji doesn't come and say, oh, Prahlad is my bhakt, so I will infuse more of my divinity in him and there is less divinity in Hiranyakashyap. That's not true.
So just to give the example earlier of the sun, right? Sunlight shines on earth in exactly the same way. But if there are clouds above Singapore and there are no clouds above Malaysia, who will receive the light? Right? So that's another way for you to understand this. Light is there. The same amount of light and divinity flows in all of us. It's the clouds that we've built around it that stop it from shining through.
Yeah. So we are sitting inside the house, so we are not receiving the direct sunlight. We step out, we receive the direct sunlight, right? So that is the first thing. He's equally abiding in everything. He does not play favorites. Bhagwanji's grace is available to us at all times, in abundance, in as much amount as we want to gather. What limits us is our limitedness. And the whole purpose of doing sadhana, the whole purpose of cleansing our antakaran is to increase our patrata to receive his grace. Increase our patrata, meaning increasing our ability to see and receive and experience his grace. It depends on us. It's constantly showering on us. Whether we collect it or not, or how much we collect, depends on our sadhana and our antakaran ki shuddhi. Okay, that's one. So he's equally abiding. Then the second piece is that that union is not real. It only appears to be so. One example that is constantly used in Vedanta and in our various classes is the example of a rope being misconstrued to be a snake. Okay, so there is a rope, and when it is not clear, right, when there is darkness around it, when you look at it, you may perceive it to be a snake, and then all of you will act as if there is a snake there. You'll feel scared, you will try and like find ways to save yourself from that snake or to get rid of that snake from your house, right? Every action of yours, every feeling of yours will be infused as if that snake is real till the time you perceive it to be the snake. Okay, but that snake is not real, but you feel it to be so. You feel as if but that snake, the fact that there is no real snake, right? But a snake, the feeling of snake is superimposed upon a rope. Okay, That example tells us, it's an example of how you seemingly you accept something to be something. You accept you accept a rope to be a snake. Once you accept it in your mind, it becomes a snake. You act like as if it's a real snake. The moment you stop believing it, because suddenly there is light that shines on it, and now you don't believe that to be a snake, now it stops being a snake, it becomes a rope. So we have to so there are two parts to this, right? One is that the this union is not real. There is a difference between the two. It only feels like this energy of it is being is activating it, and so there is reality here. Now, how do we experience that reality? We experience that reality because of our body and our body consciousness. That's how we experience that reality. We say, I am this body, and we act according to that. Everything related to this body becomes very important. It's very important to upkeep this body. It's very important to eat the right foods that this particular body likes, this tongue likes. I must decorate this body. I must keep this body clean. I must give conveniences to this body. Should not feel hot. It should not feel cold. It should be completely convenient, right? Everything we do is for this body. Someone comes and someone does something to like hurt you, immediately hurt this body, you will suddenly feel upset about it, and you will do something to retaliate. While this body is hurt, not the Jivatma inside it. But we have accepted that Jivatma has accepted in its mind. It's only seeming as if like I am this body, mind and mind, body, and intellect, right? There has just been an acceptance of it. It is only seemingly so. It is not real. They are completely different. So another important thing to understand from that is that what that means is that irrespective of what Tuhina does, punya karm, pap karm, right decisions, wrong decisions, right thoughts, wrong thoughts, right? When I look into myself and I find all these little ugly little things, I'll find these beautiful little corners. None of this affects the Jivatma inside of me. It's not me. It's only this body mind complex, body mind intellect complex, nothing else. Why this is important to understand is because when we start to do real swadhyay, swa ka adhyay, when we really start to look inside and examine ourselves and our behaviors and our actions in the VVGP, we start to see things that we don't like. It is not necessarily when we take off those rose tinted glasses where we are the center of the universe, we are the absolutely the rightest people in the world, when everything we do is justified, whereas everything else that is done by others is unjustified, and we become the victims. When we take those glasses off and we start to see how am I creating the experience I'm having, at that stage you start to see lots of ugly parts inside of you. And that is very difficult to accept. After years of developing a state of being, years of cultivating an image, it is very difficult to look into yourself and find that gandagi, that dirt that we've accumulated inside of us. And immediately the thing is, this is not me. I am not this person. I am not the aggressor. I am the one who's been aggrieved. I never did anything wrong. I have been aggressive. Now I am only reacting to it. These are very normal reactions that we have. When we start to dissociate my own self from that BMI and I look at this, it's okay, this particular BMI complex that I'm inhabiting right now has developed these habits. It is doing that, not me. That part of me is an aggressor in that moment, not me. I misbehaved in this manner, or I said something hurtful, or it's not I said hurtful, it is a BMI that said something. You start to develop a difference between who you are as Jivatma and is completely unblemished, clean, and beautiful. You are Paramatma yourself. There are no blemishes on me. I am pure, whole, and complete. Purnamada Purnamidam. I am whole and complete and beautiful and full of divinity and light. It is this BMI that is dirty. And once I have that vantage point, I can have a much better quality of swadhyaya. I will not squirm away from that. I will be a lot more accepting of what I'm seeing because it is not me anymore. It is this other thing, this BMI that I need to, it's like this house that I need to cleanse. I walk into the house, I see different rooms and I say, okay, this room is clean, this room is not clean. Okay, that room is the worst right now, so I must clean that up. You don't define yourself with that house. I mean, sometimes we do. I do all the time. When I have guests coming into my house and then I'm like, oh, the house is dirty. What will people think of me? Oh my God, I have to clean up the living room. I have to clean up that. So first of all, these are small ways in which we identify with the material objects around us. Oh, my child, is behaving like this. Now, what will people think of me? We identify with our relationships. We identify with people. We identify with VVGP and make them mine. Even in a rented house, we feel like my house, right? We identify, we become one with that thing only because we have accepted it. Till yesterday, this house was not ours. We were living in a different house. Then that house is mine. Now I've moved to this house. Now this house is mine. Why has this house become any more mine than any other house? I'm only occupying it for a small temporary period of time. I don't even know how long I'll occupy this house. Only Bhagwanji will determine how long I have to stay in this house. I did not know I have to leave that house in March. Even in January, I did not know that. Even in January, I thought I will be staying in that house like till whatever forever time. And suddenly in March, now I've shifted to a new house. I didn't know that. I don't know how long I'll be in this house. Right? So being able to create that distance is very important. And then when we look at the house, okay, this house is unclean, this house is this or whatever, we need to do certain actions to clean it up. But it is not me. I am whole, complete, and beautiful and full of divinity with the same power that Bhagwanji is infused in himself and in all of us. But agar I accept it, then it becomes me. And then I give power to others to insult me. I give power to others to like make me feel whatever they want to make me feel. But when I distance myself from it, then nobody has power over me. Now only I have power over how I behave, how I act, how I think, how I be. And I have the most important power to cleanse myself. I have to be able to look at every nook and cranny and look at it objectively and then do what needs to be done to cleanse it up, to make it suitable abode for the Jivatma that I am. That is how it connects to the me story, the unreal character of union. Otherwise, if we don't understand it in that way, then it has no meaning. Then it is just a intellectual curiosity that, like, basically, what does it even mean? And so this is how you connect it back to your me story. It is not me who did that wrong thing or said that hurtful thing. And then wallow in self-pity and anger and upset and regret later on, once we realize that we did something wrong. And then we are unable to come out of that because I feel bad. But it's not me, it is this BMI. Now I can correct it. If I can see it, I can correct it. If I can see the issues, if I don't see the issues, then I won't be able to correct it. If I am part of the whole game, then I will not be able to step back to change the narrative. That's how we free ourselves from our positive and negative emotions. And negative emotions, by the way, are the most contracting, soul contracting emotions ever. There is no use in indulging in them beyond the value they create. They are there for a reason, right? The negative emotions are there to act as guardrails. The moment we feel some kind of a negative emotion, we know that something has not been done correctly. Something has not been done in accordance with what Bhagwanji wants me to do. So then stop. There's an orange light here, red light here. Stop. And then examine. And then change the narrative. That is why those negative emotions are there, to act as an inner guiding lights to us. Danger, wrong stuff happening, stop. And then figure out how to put yourself in the positive frame of mind, the positive side of things. What did you do to get here? Now reverse those actions and do what is the right thing to do in that moment. But don't wallow in them. Wallowing in them, then you will continuously contract your own energy and will have no energy at the end of it all to be able to change the narrative as you should. Okay. Then we are misusing the emotions. We are doing a bhog of those emotions rather than using it to connect to Lord. So you can use those emotions to do the yog, or you can do bhog. Bhog will be when you're valuing in those emotions. Right? The next one. Vijay, you want to read with us?
The Lord speaks about the attainment of such discerning person.
Samam pashyan hi sarvatra
Samam pashyan hi sarvatra
samavasthita samavasthitam ishwaram
samavasthitam ishwaram
na hina na hinas na hinastyatma na hinastyatmanatmanam
na hinastyatma atmanam
na hinastyatmanatmanam
nam na hinastya mana manam
manatmanam.
manatmanam.
We'll divide it into two parts. Na hinastyat, na hinastyat,
Na
manat.
hinastya manat manam.
Perfect. Tato yati param gatim.
Tato yati param gatim. Indeed, discerning the one Lord abiding everywhere equally. Such person does not consider the end of the mortal coil to be the end of the self and thereby attains the supreme state. Attainment of supreme state. The person who discerns the one Lord as pervading and abiding in different forms of creation has clear perception of being totally identified with the self, and also understands that the body being insentient is of totally different character. Therefore, when the body comes to an end, the ever existing self does not come to an end. On achieving this firm discernment, the supreme state is attained.
In this one paragraph, Bhagwanji has told us very clearly how we become immortal. We become mortal when we accept the connection to Bhagwanji, to the mortal body. When I seemingly accept in my own mind that I am this body, then the day the body dies, I die. And hence all the other issues around it, right? But the moment I say I am not this body, I cut my connection to this body. I am the ever present Jivatma. That is the Ansh of Bhagwanji. Then end of life of this body is just a way for me to change my clothes, right? So then my state of being and my state of mind is very, very different. In that moment, I have achieved immortality because now I have transcended. I'm living in a different plane altogether. I'm not living in this physical transient plane, right? So that is one. And the second thing is that the one who fully understands and discerns and really, really brings it into his experiential reality that Bhagwanji pervades everything, which is the previous shloka, right? That he pervades everything and who understands that clear difference between field and farmer. He understands the different characteristics of field and farmer. Every time you look at something, you can see that is the field. Those are the characteristics of the field, and hence this field will behave in certain manner in accordance with the law of the nature. And there is this farmer that sits inside this field, activating this field, and I'm constantly connecting to that farmer. Then who am I? I have now in this moment achieved enlightenment and I'll never be born again.
So let me add a little bit, right?
Sorry, just one last thing, before this. So this says on achieving this firm discernment, supreme state is attained. You don't become Bhagwan, you don't achieve moksha, you don't achieve nirvana after you have exited this physical body. Moksha, nirvana, liberation, supreme state can be, will be, must be attained while in the living form. And you achieve it in this fashion. Once you discern, that's it. That is nirvana, that is moksha.
So the one very important characteristic to always remember to distinguish between field and farmer is that the field is ever changing and the farmer is not. So as seekers, we have to not attach ourselves to anything that is ever changing. Anything. Because now we know that that is unreal, that is temporary. The farmer, which doesn't ever change, is imperishable, is hard to perceive because you cannot see it through ever tools of the field, right? But you can experience it through the field. And how do you experience it through the field? By moving from gross to subtle. That's the entire journey. Every time we interact with the field or react to the field or respond to the field, we are being gross. If we are entangled in the field, we are being gross. If we are very involved and care about the outcome of the field, then we are being gross. That is our weakness. That is the clouds that we are holding above our head. It is in every situation is a lesson or a blessing. Move towards the subtle and you will experience the farm. In every situation, now whether it's, as Duna mentioned, as simple and gross an activity like eating food or moving a stone or anything, can you move to, or shopping as she highlighted, can you move from the gross that, oh, this is a Chanel bag and this is a Louis Vuitton bag and this is a Hermes bag or whatever, to standing and appreciating the people who've spent time away from their families and the years it's taken for them to make this particular item. Right? Somebody discovered leather, somebody 150 years ago did some kind of work on it for it to be malleable enough for us, etc., etc. That's when you start moving from gross to subtle and you start seeing the farmer. How it is Bhagwanji's vibhuti at every stage that continues to pervade our lives in ways we don't even appreciate. It is Bhagwanji's vibhuti that somebody or Edison discovered electricity and then somebody had the application of a fan in which, even though it's 35 degrees outside, we can sit and have a class in comfort. Right? We're all standing on shoulders of giants. Right?
And the fun part is that this temporary might feel like a bit of an oxymoron, but basically, if we use this temporary correctly, then we can attain the permanent. Do seva of the temporary field to connect to the permanent Bhagwanji. The Maya that ensnares and becomes a Maya Jal is the only way also to reach Bhagwanji through yoga. So there is no way to say that I will not interact with this Maya. How can I bypass the Maya? Maya is there for us to use the Maya to be able to achieve Bhagwanji. वो हमारी बेवकूफी है कि we are not using it correctly. It's like Bhagwanji gave us knife to to be able to chop the vegetables, to be able to cook, and then he gave us fire to cook the food. Instead of using it correctly as the right way that Bhagwanji, and he's written a full prescription, he's given us the recipes, given us the processes, he's given us the steps. Throw that away and then go cut yourself with a knife, burn yourself with the fire, and then cry and then say, why was fire given? It's so hurtful. Why was this knife given? It's so dangerous. Take it all away. How will you cook food? So Maya is exactly that. Maya has been given to us as a tool to reach him. But we instead use it to get ensnared in it because it is very attractive, it is very beautiful, it is very glamorous. We get ensnared into it. Yes, Vijay.
So up until now, there was references that moksha is the liberation from the cycle of birth, death, and so on. Now, from the perspective of Gyan, it is just the understanding that self is permanent, but this body is temporary. So there is a slight movement towards the understanding, difference of understanding, correct?
No, it's exactly the same thing. So moksha is an escape from the cycles of birth and death. Escape from the cycle of birth and death, meaning what? Escape from the pain and the
Illusion.
suffering that comes with birth and death. But once you don't identify with this field anymore, and you only identify with the farmer, when you only identify with the Paramatma, then you no longer, you may still come back in this world, you will have the birth and death cycles, all of that stuff, but that is a different body. That's not you. You are no longer, you escaped that cycle because you're not dying when the body is dying. You're not being born when the body is born. Now you are standing at a different plane and you're just watching that show and participating in it as and when required. Okay, now it is my chance. Now I'm sitting in here. Now it's my chance to be on the stage. Go there, perform your action, come back out of it. But you yourself are constantly in that space where you know I am an actor in this stage. And you even have the power to choose where you think you want to participate in that. I want to act this role, I want to act that role. But at no point of time, see, being identified with that body and not having, when you're in that ignorance, you are attached to a certain role. That role will enter the stage and that role will exit the stage. If you think you are that role, then once that role has died, you're like, oh my God, I died. Right? Then you will do anything and everything to keep that role alive. But that's not true. That role exited, you come back, you are not that role, you know you are not that role. You come back here and you're still in consciousness. Okay, now I will go back for this role or that role. There is no suffering associated with birth and death and the entire life. Then you're enjoying it, you're in a state of constant bliss. So it is the same thing. Now, what is being explained is a deeper meaning. How do you escape birth and death cycle? How do you escape suffering? This way. So it may not be what you had potentially understood as escaping the cycle of birth and death, meaning I will never be born in this world again. I will never achieve a mortal body again. That is not the, so now we are getting a deeper understanding. So that is not the way. That is not what you think about. Like, it's like saying, oh, you will, Bhagwan says, you will achieve immortality. Then we think, oh, immortality means this body will never decay. And I will live forever and ever and ever in this body. But that's not what he meant when he said you will achieve immortality. This body is born in this world, it is subject to its laws. It will die. But you will not die. This body will alone die. That's how you will achieve immortality in a different plane, not the physical plane. Make sense?
Thank you.
Yes. You're on mute, Kapil.
Every situation has a field and a farmer. So I'm in class now, right now, and I'm listening and absorbing what you and Abhinav are saying and what the classmates are saying. So is that basically, that is the field. But when I apply that with his grace and dedicate all my, whatever I learn into action by dedicating it to him, is that when I move to a subtler form, and this is for this class, this is how I can differentiate between the field, what I take, the knowledge is the field, and when I apply it with the right bhav to him and learn to whatever learning I take back and try to apply it in my life, that becomes the farmer. Or
So, no, so all of these tools that you're using, these are all tools of the field. Even the intellect, the knowledge, language, all of these are tools of the field, right? Farmer is something you experience, just like you experience sunlight, right? You can, if farmer is what is powering this entire field, it's basically the soul consciousness. So when you are applying things with the right bhav, you are basically training yourself and cleaning that antakaran slightly more so that you can start experiencing the farm inside of you. That's the whole point of Karma Yoga. That every action that we do is a chance for us to connect yoga, for us to connect back to the farmer. But when we are where we are in our journey, we need to do a lot of action in the right way with the right knowledge. And then slowly but surely, you'll start experiencing the farm. You will start experiencing that soul consciousness and Bhagwanji's miracles around you and in your life.
So question, Kakuli, your question, I don't think I fully understood your question. Like, are you saying how are you going to experience field versus farmer in this class?
yeah, like which in this class, or which part is the field and which part is basically, I will say that this is where it is the farmer.
Okay. So in this class, everything that you see, you hear is field. All of our bodies are field. Every equipment that is being used is field. Internet that is enabling this conversation is field. Electricity is field. Everything is field, right? Farmer is what is activating this entire experience. The fact that the energy that brought all the people in this class together at this time, that enabled us to attend this class, is the farmer. The energy that enabled internet to work correctly. Internet is there, but internet can fail. The energy that enabled internet to work, the energy that enabled all of the equipment to work is Bhagwanji. The words are being spoken, the word by itself, I by this body that is speaking or is being used is Bhagwanji, is the part of the field. The book that we are using to read, the paper, everything is field. But the bhav in it, what is enabling us to interpret this word is Bhagwanji. So in every way, Bhagwanji, if you look for Bhagwanji in this class, essentially Bhagwanji is coming and sitting in this class with us. He's sitting in the class and he's the one who is speaking. He is the one who is delivering the class, not me, not Abhinav. You're not listening to Tuhina and Abhinav. The moment you think you're listening to Tuhina and Abhinav, then you're connecting to the gross, you're connecting to the field. Because it is not Tuhina and Abhinav. Tuhina and Abhinav don't have the ability to interpret this book. Tuhina and Abhinav don't have the ability to even understand this for their own selves and implement it in their own lives. Okay, forget about teaching anybody else. So in this moment, when we do invocation shlokas and we invoke Bhagwanji, then Tuhina and Abhinav, to the extent that they have done a certain amount of antakaran ki cleansing, are become Bhagwanji ki grace se tools, equipment for his voice to come through, nothing else. So at no point of time are you listening to Tuhina and Abhinav. You're only listening to Bhagwanji. And he is speaking. The questions that come into your mind are also coming from Bhagwanji. ये उन्हीं का वार्तालाप चल रहा है. That is the farmer in this class. Everything else is field. Make sense?
Yeah, thank you. This is so beautiful. Thank you. Yeah, makes sense.
And this is the example that Shalini Didi had given us once. When she told us that you have to come to the class, you have to be appropriately dressed, you have to switch on your video to attend the class. Why? Because either you know that Bhagwanji comes in this class or you don't think Bhagwanji comes in the class. If you think Bhagwanji is sitting here in your class, he comes to your house, how do you welcome him? When a guest comes into your house, if Shalini Didi comes in our house today, how will we dress up? Are we going to be dressed up in our night dress? No brush, nothing, and we go and like invite? No. You'll immediately want to, any normal guest also comes in the house. Forget about Bhagwanji, forget about a realized saint coming into our house. Your neighbor comes into your house, you go and like make sure that you are dressed up appropriately, right? The more respect you have towards somebody when they come into your house, how do you dress up? Right? You will dress yourself up properly, you will do up the place properly to the best extent that you can, and then you welcome them into the house, correct? So that is what Didi said, that if you think Bhagwanji comes into this class and he's the one coming and teaching you, that is your Shraddha, then how will you dress up to receive him? And that is why she dresses up immaculately for every single class. Sari, bindi, proper jhumka, everything. That is her way of dressing up. That is how I'll dress up for my guests. So I will dress up like this for every class where Bhagwanji comes and teaches us. Right? It is her expression. So that struck with me. Like, how can I not dress up for my class if I will dress up for every single person who comes in? That's why I dress up, not for anything else. I dress up for Bhagwanji because he comes in the class. That is the bhav. Yes, 11:43. So let's do takeaways. Yeah. Who wants to go?
I can. Oh, sorry.
Essential, sorry, go ahead, Kapil. Go ahead, ma'am.
Okay, I just wanted, because this was so powerful. Thank you, Tuhina and Avinav. Like all these more than two, I think will be the third year. And I mean, just this little conversation, maybe he wanted us to know that he's sitting right here. So I had 2, 3 takeaways, but I don't think I can give any, because the only takeaway right now is that he's there. I mean, I'm getting goosebumps actually. I don't know why, but he is there in this class, and it is he through y'all are teaching us and whatever we are saying. Yeah. So no other takeaway. I'll come back with this. Maybe I'll write it down in the group. Yeah. Thank you so much.
For me, essentially, the clarity towards moksha and nirvana, just we spoke about, right? Like the liberation cycle that my understanding has now a betterment. Thank you.
Beautiful.
May I go next?
Yeah.
There are a lot of takeaways, but there are two very important takeaways for me from this class. One is when we discern from the Purusha and Prakriti, how we can dissociate the BMI complex, and we see our Antarkaran as a Purusha. We see our Antarkaran and see the impurities in Antarkaran and work on it. So that is one thing. And where all I'm giving the power there. So the understanding become clear when we dissociated with the BMI complex. And the second one is how to experience God, how to feel from the gross to the subtle. So when we look at anything in the subtle level, automatically there is a positivity in there. We tend to look at the positive situation when we move towards the subtle. We look at the blessing in that situation, any hard situation. So that is my takeaway.
I can go next. So my takeaway is like you have beautifully said, like we seemingly have the union of body and spirit. So we have to dissociate ourselves from. We all think about like all the time we think about the body consciousness. We have to get away from that gradually and go to the subtler level. And also the last point when Kakoli asked about the class I really like the explanation you guys gave me. Like, you are seeing God. We have to see God in everything. So yeah, that's my takeaway.
Thank you.
My takeaways were that the fact that you mentioned that our world is a mandir and how we go about in our life. For me, it is basically behaving and acting towards other people and how I deal with people. It's like God is watching me. So it doesn't have to be in a temple or just the way it is, but the way I have to conduct myself. And the second takeaway about how God's grace is in abundance and it's in as much quantity as we take it. So it's basically the vessel that is within me, how I am able to retain it, and whether there are holes in it or not, I have to block those holes and clean it up. So that's all dependent on me and the limitations that I am putting. If only I've created them, and so these are the two takeaways that I.
Very nice. Rituj, one more thing, right? We don't, when we are thinking about this world as a mandir, and take that thing one step higher. Not that Bhagwanji is watching you. You are interacting with Bhagwanji directly. Every interaction is with Bhagwanji. He is not a silent observer standing on the side and you are interacting with someone else. You are directly interacting only with Bhagwanji in every moment, in every situation.
Shall I go?
Yeah.
The For me, the takeaway would be how to look at the inanimate as being part of as being a part of where, like, you would I would normally not see Purusha in the inanimate.
I think she's lost connection.
Thing which is not moving. Yeah. Okay. Am I audible?
Yeah.
Now you are.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. The looking at the inanimate, how you explained, water is inanimate, but the flow is being powered by Purusha. That would be one of my takeaways. And the other one would be, what is true Swadhyay? True Swadhyay is to detach from your body mind complex and to look at yourself and your flaws with detachment so that you can make this body true abode for your Jivatma. That would be it, I guess.
And even in true Swadhyay, actually, we have to look at everything objectively, right? So, objectively meaning ki you don't just focus on what is wrong with me. It's a very easy way to talk for everything that we may say. End of the day, we have very high level of body consciousness. So you're gonna get depressed very soon. You have to look at both the pros and the cons. Everything we do, there are both good and the bad inside of us. There's both Ram and Ravan inside of us all the time, right? So while you look at the Ravan demonic qualities, we also look at the divine, the Ram qualities inside of us. And the focus is in every moment, I have both Ram and Ravan ready to be activated. What did I activate this time? What did I activate this time? What can I instead activate? At all points of time. And have empowering thoughts, not thoughts that pull us down because they contract our soul. Instead, have empowering conversations with yourself and see what better can I do next time? What is the better way to deal with this situation if it comes again? And visualize that better situation. The more you visualize, your mind does not know whether you are acting or not acting in real life. When you are powerfully visualizing a situation and a response, your mind thinks it is actually doing it. So you are actually in that moment creating new neural networks for new habits. That is why visualization as a technique, if used correctly, is a super strong way of developing better habits. So every time you look at something and you're like, I'm not happy with my behavior here, visualize an empowering situation where you would deal with that situation in a much more powerful manner and in a way that is in line with Bhagwanji's principles. And visualize it again and again and again and again. That is how newer habits will be formed and old habits will start to get suppressed and they will eventually wither away.
Thank you.
So I'll go. Um, so from today's class, it's a bit more clear to me about like physical form and the self, the sentient and the insentient. Um, when you were talking about in Shloka 28, when we were talking about how we can become immortal, is like our self is immortal and the body is what we have to give up. That time I was thinking that I have so much body conscious. I don't believe that. But I believe that I am my body and not the self. That is what I think generally. So I think I'll change my way of thinking about that. And third thing is when you said that we are interacting with God in our every situation. I'm talking to you. Interacting with God. I'm talking to Naina. I'm interacting with God. Somehow I forget that in my daily life in our normal situations. So yeah, I have to keep reminding myself of that.
See, in this also, it is you are going to forget. Let's be very clear about it. You are going to forget because हमारे में इतनी शक्ति ही नहीं है ही नहीं. Or every ounce of your energy you use that you have, and you will be defeated by Maya. So if we believe that with my own energy, with my own Shakti, I will be able to achieve moksha, conquer anger, always remember to find Bhagwanji in everybody, it will never happen. Never happen. Because the very adhishtan, the very basis of that thought process is ego, which is limited. Because we think I can do it with my energy and I'm smart enough to do it. We're not. We are limited, extremely limited, and Maya is extremely potent. We will get lost into it. The only and the only way to really have any to conquer Maya is when Maya lets us conquer her. When she says, okay, now I lie down, you walk over. I give you the pathway to walk. If she decides to stand against you, you have no chance. So how will she allow you that pathway? Now I allow you to walk through. Is when you will pray to her, not when you fight her. You fight her, she will fight you back. You pray to her, she will act in response. So that is why the only way to do this is to pray to her. In the Shakti tradition, we pray to Maya, we pray to the Devi. We please her by looking at her as Ma. When she is your mother, you don't do bhog of your mother. Right? You pray to your mother, you treat your mother with reverence. You're not constantly thinking, how do I take this? How do I take this? How do I take that? How do I acquire? No, you're constantly in the seva mode, without asking how do I acquire something from the Maya? Okay, that's one. Or in the Vedantic tradition, you pray to Bhagwanji, who is the owner of Maya, who created Maya in the first place, who is the king of Maya, Adhipati of Maya. So when Bhagwanji says, okay, you pass through, Maya will obviously say you pass through because my boss has told me that you have to pass through. Right? So we have to basically, first of all, so Radhe Baba had given a prayer, which I will tell you right now. That prayer, if you repeat, he basically said every 3 hours, repeat this prayer 3 times. Every 3 hours, repeat this prayer 3 times to help us remember exactly what Bhagyashree just said, that she's unable to remember. which is true for all of us. Every one of us is exactly what Bhagyashi just voiced for all of us. We do not believe that we are not this body. We are fully entrenched in our body consciousness, and we act like that on a daily basis. Okay, we constantly forget to find Bhagwanji in every moment. Okay, every in like this we forget. So the way to form, and these are all four habits, right? So that's agyan. So we have to do a lot of practice to improve. That's why this puja. So Bhagwanji, the puja is, and I will post it on our WhatsApp group is, हे नाथ, मैं आपको अपनी शक्ति से प्राप्त नहीं कर सकता, पर आप अपनी अनंत अपरिसीम और अहेतु की कृपा से मुझे संभाल लीजिए, मैं आपकी शरण में हूँ. Means that I cannot see you, seek you, find you, or achieve you through my own efforts and energy. But you, with your endless, without any recourse and with no expectations, the blessings that you shower on people with no expectations, no requirements, no strings attached, and endless mercy. With that kind of mercy, accept me and help me. I cannot do it. I am in your sharan. I am surrendered to you. Now you only help me. Now remember that in every context, in every situation, with every person, in every VVGP, you can say the same prayer in a slightly different way. But this is the base prayer. With that surrender, let his energy flow through you. Then he will take over from there on. When he takes over, then you don't have to worry also. Whatever is the end result, it doesn't matter. What happens is we don't surrender fully. What we do is, I want to give you reins, take over, but do what I am telling you to do. I want that end result. That is, in my mind, is the right end result for me. So you do all of your magic to achieve that end result. That's how we surrender. But that's not the right way to surrender. The right way to surrender is to fully surrender and accept whatever outcome will come out of it. And take that with prasad buddhi. It may not be what I thought was in my best interest. It may be completely different. It may be opposite. But accept that also with full prasad buddhi, that the outcome you have created is in my best interest, for which is getting me closer to you. Because that is my ultimate welfare, not acquiring a certain materialistic outcome that I wanted to create. That is the real surrender. Otherwise, it is kapat.
Yeah, I also keep reminding about surrender. You had given one example a few months ago where which I implement sometimes, is that if I am feeling anxious about any outcome, I try to I speak to myself that, you know, whatever will happen, may God's will take. First I pray like what I want, but I know that what I'm praying for, what I want might not happen. We don't know if that'll happen or not. Then I just pray that may God's will take place, that whatever God wants, that should happen, and I'll just accept whatever that is.
It's a very powerful way to get rid of your anxiety. Just tell Bhagwan ji ki meri ichha ye hai, meri, my alp buddhi, in my limited understanding, I think this is the right thing. And so I'm putting it in front of you. Now, if you also think this is the right thing to happen, then please help me, guide me how to do this. If not, then give me the buddhi and the wisdom to understand what else should happen. And whatever happens, I'll accept it with the grace. And then really accept it, whatever happens. Yes, Vijay. Closing thoughts from Vijay.
So just a funny thing, one of the saying that has been told is like how we are praying these days, right? You go put like 50, 100 rupees in the hundi and keep advising God how to go about doing whatever we need. That was coming.
That's our corruption of our mind. Let's do the closing shlokas.
Yeah.
You want to start?
Sure.
Or someone else wants to do the closing shlokas today?
Yeah, I can go and do that. ॐ सर्वेषां स्वस्तिर्भवतु सर्वेषां शान्तिर्भवतु सर्वेषां पूर्णं भवतु सर्वेषां मङ्गलं भवतु ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः ॐ सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः सर्वे सन्तु निरामय सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत् ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः ॐ असतो मा सद्गमय तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गमय मृत्योर्मा मदन्तमय ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः ॐ पूर्णमद पूर्णमिदं पूर्णाय पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः ॐ
Thank you, everyone. Narayan, Narayan.